Marriage is one of the social institutions. It is established by the human society to control and regulate the sex life of man in a culturally defined and socially approved way. It permits a man and a woman to live together as husband and wife. Marriage is not a biological affair, but also a social affair. It is a social permission given to a man and a woman to live together with certain rights and obligations. According to Malinowski, marriage is a contract for the production and maintenance of children. According to Gillen and Gillen, marriage is a socially approved way of establishing a family of procreation. H.M. Johnson viewed marriage as a stable relationship in which a man and a woman are socially permitted without a loss of standing in community to have children. A dictionary of sociology defines marriage as an institution that sanctions the relationship of a man and a woman and bids them in a system of mutual obligation as husband and wife and rights essential to the functioning of family life. Prescriptive basically means that it is a type that is required. Preferential means that it is a type that is preferred. But there is some choice in the matter. For example, in many societies, there was a prescriptive rule of exogamy. That is, it was considered as bad as incest to marry someone within the group, whether the group was defined as a village or a tribe or whatever. The person of marriageable had to go outside that group. But then there might also be preferential rules about where outside that group the person should go. That society might say that a woman should preferentially marry her cross cousin in the next village over. So she would try to find a male cousin who was the son of her father's sister or her mother's brother of the right age. But there might not be someone of the right sex and right age, you see. Since this rule was only preferential, she could pick maybe a second cousin which wasn't quite as good. But as long as he came from the next village over and not her own village, she was still following the prescriptive rule which said the marriage had to be exogamous, you see. Some societies, though, would have prescriptive endogamy. Couples had to marry within the group. Say the Amish have a rule that they must marry other Amish, or Jews are supposed to marry other Jews. These are relatively large groups though. Then there are other preferential rules like the sororate, levirate, parallel or cross-cousin marriages and so on, which may or may not be available depending on circumstances. What is preferential marriage? Preferential marriage, as is clear by the title, is the marriage custom in which some males or females are preferred for establishing matrimonial relationships. Such cases, the marriage is a means for uniting two families for welfare of both. The preference is clearly based upon certain advantages concerning new relationship and adjustment and respect in the new family. The rules of preferential mating are, however, customary and not written. Among the Lingayats of South India, a man prefers or is expected or even has a special right to marry his own or classificatory mother's brother's daughter or father's sister's daughter, bilateral cross-cousin marriage, or sister's daughter, uncle-niece marriage. Marriages among other preferential kin are allowed except those persons related either actually or by analogy as parent and child or as brother and sister. Among the Lingayats of Kalyan, a suburban fringe of the city of Dharwad in Mysore state, the choice of mates for children is a responsibility of the parents and the kin group. The average age at first marriage of girls is 12 years. Matrilateral and patrilateral cross-cousin marriages and uncle-niece marriages are not merely permitted but are regarded as desirable. Such marital unions renew and reinforce the existing kinship system, thereby the distinction between relatives by blood and by marriage is often blurred. Role of cousins. The role of cross cousins is especially important in some cultures. For example, marriage is promoted between them in the Arokya system. Parallel cousins are occasionally the subject of promoted marriage, such as the preferential marriage of a male ego to his father's brother's daughter, common among some pastoral people. Such a marriage helps keep property within a lineage. On the other hand, parallel cousin unions in some cultures would fall under an incest taboo, since parallel cousins are part of the subject's unilineage, whereas cross cousins are not. Forms of preferential marriages. Cross cousin marriage. In this type, marriage between children or real brother and sister are preferred. The children among them are cross cousins. In India, such marriage are prevalent among the Kuki tribe of Manipur. Among Gonds, this type of marriage is almost compulsory. According to Grigson, 54% Gond marriages are of this type. The cross-cousin marriage system of South India and of some castes in Maharashtra is common to the Mahars. Marriage to mother's brother's daughter or father's sister's son is allowed. There has never been a bar to widow remarriage. Residence is generally patrilocal, but this is less strictly observed than in higher castes. Divorce is and has been practiced informally among the lower castes in India, including the Mahars. Similar custom is prevalent in Kariya, Oraon, Khasi, Khadar tribes, the Mikir tribe of Assam, and the Bhils of Madhya Pradesh, etc. In Madhya Pradesh, in some tribes, this type of marriage is so much preferred that it does not materialize, the other party has to pay compensation for it. Among Gonds, this custom is known as returning of the milk, meaning that the bride price paid to a wife's family is returned by it. Thus, a person who marries in a family gives his daughter in marriage to that family so that the balance is restored. The two kinds of cross-cousin marriage are asymmetrical and reciprocal. The easiest way to describe them is to use diagrams. Here, a circle represents a woman, a triangle represents a male, an equal sign represents marriage or conjugal relationship. Vertical lines represent descent and horizontal lines represent sibling relationships. The asymmetrical cross-cousin marriage, if repeated over generation, requires an agreement between two matrilineages. This is a pattern closely related to the Akan Confederation for forming towns or states or major divisions within states. The lineage in the above diagram portrayed on the right always provides the wife in this arrangement. The other lineage, as in the one on the left above, always provides the husband. The chief's lineage is said to be married to each of the lineages in the confederation. During a study of the Obos, the Obo chief had 32 wives. In practice, he had conjugal relations only with the wife he married before he was installed as a chief. Mainly elderly women who are among his structural wives today take the arrangement as a form of old age security. Custom requires that if such a wife dies, then the lineage must provide a replacement to become the wife of the chief. The people colored orange would be in lineage A, the chief's lineage, while those colored blue would be in lineage B, the lineage member of the confederation. The second type of cross-cousin marriage is reciprocal. Again, it is a relationship between two lineages, but this time in each alternating generation, each lineage provides first a husband, then a wife. The reciprocal pattern serves two functions, one economic and one political. When a man acquires wealth in his lifetime, he is interested in supporting his sons. At death, however, there are three things that follow the mother's lines: inheritance, succession, and descent. If he invests in his son, building up capital for a business or a cocoa farm, that wealth will go to the son's lineage. If his son marries his sister's daughter, however, it will return to his own lineage. That is the economic component. As time passes and societies change, the urbanization, westernization, and modernization of society means that more people are choosing spouses outside the hometown and outside family. Fewer persons adhere to the wishes and desires of their elders, and thus cross-cousin marriage is declining. Because the law of the land, some countries like Ghana recognize traditional land usage where the matrilineal descent group owns land corporately. Chieftaincy and the institutions which accompany matrilineal descent, such as cross-cousin marriage, do live on. Court decision. In a recent decision, the Bombay High Court declined to agree with the prayer of a husband directing that the parents of his wife be directed to give the custody of the wife to him. The High Court, noting that the marriage being first cousins who were Hindus was illegal, and thus the court could not give such direction. The High Court inter alia observed as under. Counsel appearing for the petitioner, however, submits that the court should issue further direction to the respondents to hand over the custody of Haramdeep Kaur to the petitioner. In the facts of the present case, we do not think it proper to consider this prayer. That is so because it is the case of the petitioner that he has entered into marriage with Haramdeep Kaur on 21st January 2009, knowing fully well that the said Haramdeep Kaur is his first cousin. In view of Section 5 of the Hindu Marriage Act, the marriage between the petitioner and Haramdeep Kaur, Kuldeep Singh, cannot be treated as valid. It is void on account of Clause 5 of Section 5 of the Hindu Marriage Act 1955. If the request of the petitioner was to be considered, it would be putting seal of approval of the court on the arrangement arrived at between the petitioner and the said Haramdeep Kaur. At the same time, we may observe that said Haramdeep Kaur is admittedly major. She is free to take her own decision if she so desires. That decision could be in consultation with her parents and relatives. We express no opinion with regard to that. In our opinion, no further order is warranted in this petition. Petition is disposed of. Parallel cousin marriage. When the children of two brothers or sisters marry, it is known as parallel cousin marriage. In this sort of marriage, The boy and girl are either children of some brothers or some sisters. Such marriages are prevalent among Muslims and sanctioned by their religion. It is, however, generally prohibited in Indian tribes. In Arabia, such marriages are prevalent. Marriages between consanguinely related kin are quite common around the world. Cousin marriages are the most commonly recorded and often assume the form of cross-cousin marriage, in which the children of a brother and sister marry. This pattern usually occurs in societies which practice lineage exogamy, since a man's children will be of his own lineage and his sisters in her husband's group, that is patrilineal case, or a woman's children will be of her own lineage and her brothers in his wife's group, matrilineal case. Parallel cousin marriage is a less prevalent institution but does occur in some societies. In this situation, the children of two same-sex siblings marry. Patrilateral parallel cousin marriage. The marriage of brothers' children is the standard pattern. When parallel cousin marriage is practiced in societies organized into a unilineal descent groups, it has the effect of arranging marriage within the lineage and results in lineage endogamy. In the diagram, D and E are the son and daughter of two brothers B and C. They are both brothers of the same patrilineage, which is indicated in blue. Lineage endogamy constitutes an exception, a common practice of widening the sphere of social alliance by forbidding marriage within lineages. It does, however, contribute to keeping lineage resources from being transferred to other groups through marriage exchanges or inheritance. Accordingly, it is found in societies where the continuity of lineage property is important, as in the case of pastoral societies where parallel cousin marriages are arranged to maintain the integrity of family herds. Patrilateral parallel cousin marriage is evidently ancient in the Near East, from whence it spread during the Arab conquests to adjacent people through the vehicles of kinship, intermarriage, and religious conversion. Most commentators on the custom have repeated the Arab explanation that it keeps property within the family, but as Barth notes, this explanation is valid only when the Quranic law through which a daughter inherits half the amount received by a son is observed. This is very frequently not the case. In any event, the argument ignores the fact that the daughter of another family could well bring into the husband's a group a most welcome inheritance, and we are thus able to use the same motivation to show that exogamy is a potential means of enhancing familial fortunes. Or phrased in another way, if we admit this to be an effective means of preserving the patrimony, why is it not common practice in a wider range of societies? Levirate and sororate. Another type of preferential mating may be observed in the form of levirate and sororate. In the former, a man marries the sister of his wife after her death. In the latter, a man marries the wife of his elder brother if she becomes a widow. This is known as junior levirate. It is, however, also possible between the elder brother and the widow of younger brother. This is known as senior levirate. Sororate marriage is a type of marriage in which a husband engages in marriage or sexual relations with the sister of his wife, usually after the death of his wife or once his wife has proven infertile. When the marriage with the sister of the wife is performed while she is living, it is known as simultaneous surrogate. On the other hand, if the marriage is performed after the death of the wife, it is known as restricted surrogate. Both these types of marriages are prevalent, particularly to economic and compassionate reasons. While levirate marriages were rather common in rural India, the practice is currently seen only in a few parts of the country such as Punjab and Haryana. It is thought that the tradition dates back centuries in societies that did not provide any work opportunities for women outside of the home. The women did not have the option of remarrying or going back to their parents' house. Therefore, the practice allowed widows a chance to keep any land or property owned by the deceased husband in the family. Levirate was quite common in rural India until as recently as a few years ago, and is still practiced in certain parts of Punjab and Haryana. It is called Latta Odna in the Jats of Haryana, Latta being the Haryanvi word for a cloth that women used to cover their heads and faces, and Odna translating as covering or wearing. This is also called Chadar Dakna in other parts, Chadar being in Hindi for Latta and Dakna being Hindi for Odna. In recent years, the levirate has all but disappeared except from the remote rural areas. Genetics. Cousin marriage has genetic aspects that do not arise in the case of other marriage-related political and social issues like interracial marriage. This is because married couples that possess higher than normal consanguinity, shared identical DNA and genetic material have an increased chance of sharing genes for recessive traits. The percentage of consanguinity between any two individuals decreases fourfold as the most recent common ancestor recedes one generation. First cousins have 4 times the consanguinity of second cousins, while first cousins, once removed, have half that of first cousins. Double first cousins have twice that of the first cousins and are as related as half siblings. Critics argue that banning first cousin marriages would make as much sense as trying to ban childbearing by older women. After repeated generations of cousin marriage, the actual genetic relationship between two people is closer than the most immediate relationship would suggest. Even in the absence of preferential consanguinity, all alleles that are rare in large populations can randomly increase to high frequency in small groups within a few generations due to the founder effect and accelerated genetic drift in a breeding pool of restricted size. For example, because the entire Amish population is descended from only a few hundred 18th century German Swiss settlers, the average coefficient of inbreeding between the two random Amish is higher than between two non-Amish second cousins. First cousin marriage is taboo among Amish, but they still suffer from several rare genetic disorders. In Ohio's Gaigua County, Amish make up only about 10% of the population, but represent half the special need cases. In one debilitating seizure disorder, the worldwide total of 12 cases is exclusively Amish. Similar disorders have been found in the highly polygynous fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who do allow first cousin marriage and of whom 75 to 80% are related to two 1930s founders. Studies into the effect of cousin marriage on polygenic traits and complex diseases of adulthood have often yielded contradictory results due to the rudimentary sampling strategies used. Both positive and negative associations have been reported for breast cancer and heart disease. Long-term studies conducted on the Dalmatian Islands in the Adriatic Sea have indicated a positive association between inbreeding and a very wide range of common adulthood disorders, including hypertension, coronary heart disease, stroke, cancer, bipolar depression, asthma, gout, peptic ulcer, and osteoporosis. However, these results may principally reflect village endogamy rather than consanguinity pers. Endogamy is marrying within a group, and in this case, the group was a village. Fertility. Higher total fertility rates are reported for cousin marriages than average, a phenomenon noted as far back as George Darwin during the late 19th century. There is no significant difference in the number of surviving children in cousin marriages because this compensates for the observed increase in child mortality. The total fertility increase may be partly explained by the lower average parental age at marriage and age at first birth observed in consanguineous marriages. Other factors including shorter birth intervals and possibly a lower likelihood of using reliable contraception. There is also the possibility of more births as a compensation for increased child mortality, either via a conscious decision by parents to achieve a set family size or the cessation of lactational amenorrhea following the death of an infant. According to a recent paper, the fertility difference is probably not due to any underlying biological effect. In Iceland, where marriages between second and third cousins were common, in part due to limited selection, studies show higher fertility rates. Earlier, papers claimed that increased sharing of human leukocyte antigens as well as of deleterious recessive genes expressed during pregnancy may lead to lower rates of conception and higher rates of miscarriage in consanguineous couples. Studies consistently show a lower rate of primary infertility in cousin marriages, usually interpreted as being due to greater immunological compatibility between spouses. Marriages between first and second cousins account for over 10% of marriages worldwide. They are particularly common in the Middle East, where in some nations they account for over half of all marriages. In many cultures, only certain specific types of cousin marriages are permitted while others are prohibited. In a large number of geographically dispersed cultures, including in South India, among the Iroquois and certain other North American First Peoples, indigenous Australians and the Maoris of New Zealand, only cross-cousin marriages are permitted and parallel cousin marriages are forbidden. In Western culture, They have always been legal in most jurisdictions and enjoyed wide social acceptance until the first half of the 20th century. Indeed, they were the norm in royal families, with Queen Victoria, Albert, and William Mary being two of numerous examples. However, in recent years, such marriages are often stigmatized in parts of the Western world. The diversity of attitudes towards cousin marriage, even within the same culture, has meant that its study features prominently in the field of anthropology, notably in alliance theory. Consonant with this cultural diversity, the attitude of various religions on the question of cousin marriage is also diverse. The same texts permit marriage between second cousins if the man and women are related in other ways. The children of first cousin marriages have an increased risk of genetic disorders, though the incremental risk enhancement is relatively small, according to many researchers. Supporters of cousin marriage in the West view legal bans as discrimination, while opponents may appeal to morality or other arguments.